Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today, with that which required our attention thoroughly dealt with, the Raiders have returned to civilization, back to Oberberg, where they've gotten themselves resituated, resupplied, and more or less ready to go. Still a few flesh wounds festering, but honestly not too bad. We're in pretty good shape, all things considered. You know, especially since that was our 6th, 7th legendary location. Though it will be a while before we're ready for our next, and thus we return to more mercantile pursuits. Let's see what we've got. Okay, Orc contract near Eisengrab. We've done those before. Pay's relatively mediocre, but that's fine. We just need an excuse to travel around. Our current ambition is to buy and sell trade goods, so as long as we're still doing that, we're making progress towards our primary goal. And given where we're headed, I'm thinking we'll take the long way round. Though first things first, let's pop over to Damwald real quick. Our inventory's cluttered up with esoteric animal parts, so best to put them to practical use, clear some space. Especially if we are in fact going to go all the way out here. Peel off another strip of fog, see if we can maybe find something new. Ambush trade routes and disappearing people. Pretty much cancel each other out, so not worth selling here. But we can still do this. Again, just gotta clear some space. Might as well convert this stuff into something potentially usable. We do actually have a couple of characters who don't have direwolf pelts equipped yet. Mostly on the newer legendary armor we've picked up. And I will also note, we are not going to use that. I don't know if we're actually going to do it, but I would like to keep our options open as far as the Kraken is concerned. But that's for future retcon to worry about. Oh, yeah, and these are not tenable prices. So, we'll hold on to what we've got. And head on out. Let's hit the slopes. Yeah, we'll just pull kind of a sideways Yui. Actually, we could go all the way around here. Yeah, you know what? Why not? Oh. You find Verlin standing beside the company wagon with a sleeve unfurled and his finger picking at some strange markings there. Curious, you ask if they are birthmarks. The anatomist turns, shaking his head. He lifts up his shirt to show that these markings are all over his body, mottling the flesh with unsightly colors which look rough to the touch, like scabs that cannot be peeled. The potion I drank did this, and I know not what to do with myself. You nod and tell him it'll surely get better. He sighs and simply lowers his shirt and looks away. Ah, waste of an event slot. But, you know, not awful. As far as negative events go, that one's pretty tame. And here we go. Tribal Camp. Reavers and Chosen. Oh, plus a hunting party. Alright, the Reavers are no problem. The Chosen, though, those are a bit of a stickier wicket. At least for some of our squishier raiders. Let me do some rearranging here. As the raiders began their circuitous circuit towards Eisengrab, they soon spied another squat tribal village. Hulking armored forms visible lumbering about from one structure to the next. No research potential here, I'm afraid. Rook opined from the sidelines. Eerie and Verlin nodding agreement. A few of the raiders exchanged glances. So, we killing him or what? Rassel drawled. If you must, Rook conceded. But quickly, please. We have much better things to do. And the raiders nodded, weapons readied, armor donned. Knowing they had yet more foes at their back, the raiders eschewed subtlety, approaching with all the clamor and clatter they could muster. And with a raucous roar, the first of the reavers rushed their line, swiftly met by the raiders in turn. A random flail popping one peon out of joint. The Chosen closing in shortly after. Thunderous footsteps and the clatter of crude plate heralding their approach. And the raiders moved in. Though they were not off to a great start. Whew, double 90 plus. Tough break for Czar. Trip slipped in next, his obsidian dagger slipping neatly between crude plates to impale an aggressor's elbow. Tommy threw through a thug's throat. A patter of shrapnel clattering off bulky breastplates. Arrows swiftly following. Rassel rang one hooligan's helm like a bell. And Rax moved in. But alas, no luck. A colossal swing. And an equally colossal miss. The rest of the raiders rushing to support. Rook running one through on south. And Centris hammered a helmed horror's head. A burly brute brought to heel. Darmal gamely gave it another go, gouging a goon's guts. Wounding another warrior. Even as Rassel was forced back, an axe hurled over his head. And the battle raged on. Trip swiftly slaughtering a skull-smashed savage. His new knife pulsing strangely in his grip. Another random flail. A nose annihilated. The ne'er-do-well attached, not faring much better. Tommy threw down the line. Ooh. And makeshift maul cracked across Drax's hand. Fingers fractured, bent at odd angles. The fierce flagellant grunted, seeming more annoyed than injured. Scimitar switched to single-hand grip. Arrow took aim. Shots shattering against primal plate. And the Chosen charged in. Despite their early losses, they still seemed keen to fight. A notion the raiders sought to disabuse them of. In part accomplished as Rax defooted a foe, leaving them stumped but not fully defeated. Rassel rushed a foolish flanker. A swift swing, another skull rung. Oh, goodness. And Rax finally met his match. A butcher's blade buried deep in his side, ribs exposed. Breath coming in blood-flecked gasps, but still the warrior fought on. He certainly had worse before, and he'd be damned if he fell to some second-rate savage. A fallen foe stirred, lurched back upright. Raider heads turning. Some at inopportune moments, as Drakiith's suddenly shattered shoulder blade might imply. And yet there was no denying what they all saw. A perished primitive, pulled back from the brink of death. Or perhaps simply recycled, his remains now rising restlessly. Though, in an unarmed state, which was somewhat peculiar considering that when he fell, he still had a weapon. Those undead will certainly prove a mite bit less useful if they don't actually come back armed. Diego advanced, giving a side-eye in passing to his sepulchral new associate. Whilst arrow stayed on target, an arrow sinking deep into an aggressor's eye socket. Tommy axing another out. And Rax wrecking shop. 2 more fell before his blade. A third to Rook's pike. And then but 4 remained, albeit a dangerous 4. 3 chosen and a lone reaver. Swiftly reduced to 2. Another chosen meeting an obsidian end. The raiders rallied, rushing south. Except for Drakiith, who finally fell back, favoring his twice fractured phalanges. And another undead ambled upright. Raiders going tense for a brief moment as it did so. All but for Trip, who seemed to take the sudden development in stride. And see, this one did actually get back up with a weapon equipped, which does make me wonder if the second they fall is when it checks to see whether their equipment survived or not. Since, of course, obviously, weapons, armor, both can be broken when a foe falls. The remaining ruffians were caught off guard. Trip making short work of the third to last, and in doing so, adding yet another to his ominous escort. The remaining Reaver legged it, or at least as best he could. The final chosen, swiftly slaughtered. Still fighting, but conclusion foregone. No weapon on that one. Not that it really matters at this point, though I am curious if we still get those armor drops. The fact they're alive again, technically, and allied would imply no, since at the end of combat, unless they fall over dead again, any items carried or worn would not go into the loot pool. Random doled a chosen fate, then ran down the final foe. And the rest of the raiders moved in. The hapless Reaver cut to ribbons. Ooh, not gonna lie. Slightly underestimated that one. Chosen do still pose a bit of a threat, at least to our... Well, I mean, not even just our squishier raiders, because, like, obviously Drak took a couple of nasty hits there, but Rax took a pretty bad whack there, too. That axe went straight through his armor and into his ribs. Sadly, not much to show for our trouble. Though, you know, I'm honestly not sure if they dropped loot or not. There was nothing unique enough on their bodies to really say for certain. Though really, even if we are losing loot, it's not the end of the world. Not unless it's something unique, perhaps. You know, that would annoy me. Silence befell the bloodied battlefield, the last of the barbarians brutally slain, though 3 still yet stood, following in Trip's footsteps. The grizzled gadabout paying them no mind, almost as if he simply didn't notice. Or perhaps simply saw nothing unusual about his reanimated retinue. Though goodness knew, the anatomist certainly took notice. Eyes alight with academic interest, Rook swiftly gestured to the rest of the raiders, signaling to intercept the reavers rushing towards their rear. An assignment eagerly accepted by the raiders who'd rather not deal with this sort of, necromantic nonsense. Though there were a few concerned glances tossed after Trip, as Eerie and Ver led him away. And heedless of the horrors that had just unfolded, the Reaver reinforcements finally arrived, a day late and $1 short, but still eager for their share of blood, which they would shed shortly, though they might not like the change. The initial exchange was decidedly one-sided. Random flails felt on south. Rook rushing in, keeping the company focused with a pointed jab of his pike. But as with their barbarous brethren, the Reavers were not perturbed. At least not yet. Eagerly meeting the raiders in battle, oblivious to the simple fact that they were utterly outmatched. Shrapnel tore through the southern flank, one cur clutching at opened chest. Rassel bluntly dealt with a bloodied brute. Sigmar swung in. A bold position to take, but he was perhaps eager to make up for lost time. Diego displacing an axeman on north. And the drums thrummed on. The Reavers moving to that savage rhythm. Ooh. And to their advantage, it would seem. Sigmar staggered, ears ringing from errant impact. Okay, yeah, I should have definitely kept him back one space, forced them to come to him. That's fine though, we can salvage this. Val shouldered a burden. The rest of the raiders adapting as Reavers overran their line. Giannis cut one off on north. Rook running another through. Seymore now stepping up. His opponent utterly gutted. Mal mauled another. Rassel kept one on south contained. And the battle raged on. Arrow's eyes set upon that persistent percussionist. A stabbing pain through sternum. Heartbeat and drumbeat both going erratic. Random disarmed a Reaver. It was a snap. And Rassel wrestled him the rest of the way down. Alois left unhampered. Blade quickly stowed, gun back at the ready. Though, as ever, the rest of the raiders were hastily cutting things short. Giannis headed off another foe. Val gut-checking another goon. The results were hard to stomach. And Alois held back. I think we've got this. And the drummer sticks around. Come on, Seymore, man. The final foe on South falls, flailed to the ground. Diego disarming the last on North. And intent on making sure the drummer is snared. The raiders push ever onward. Another savage swept by Seymour's axe. And Mal pushing past, pinning that pesky percussionist in place. A Reaver split before he could split. Diego dug in, opponent pinned. And Cetrus hammered him down. All that remained was to box in the Beatmaster, to form a beatbox, if you will. And then he too fell silent. The beat beaten out, his fate symbolic. And yeah, that was a much simpler skirmish. The Reavers really pose little actual threat at this point. It's mainly the Chosen we have to worry about. Which honestly makes it all the more impressive that Trip, of all people, claimed 3 his last time out. That said, the fleeting threat through. The raiders swiftly gathered what little loot the late louts left. And after some reshuffling of their ranks, went on their way. Trip still lagging behind. Now sans zombies, but seemingly annoyed by the persistent attentions of Eerie and Verlin. And the raiders resumed course, once again making their way out into the wilds. Spying the Coven of Midnight Terror, but, you know, deciding maybe they'll take a pass on that one. As much fun as it might be to tangle with Necrosavants. Ooh, that though. Unhold Graveyard. A wide field littered with gigantic bones and skulls. Some are bleached to white, but some are fresh, and still have flesh attached. The anatomists quickly take interest, much to Trip's relief. Finger bones like fallen totems. Thighs hewn free of the knee as though foresters had set upon a gloomy work. Curved ribs scattered across the earth like they were under a shipwright's appraisal. And the skulls, tottering on the wedges of jawbones, held up like animistic abodes of shamans. Molars the size of shields. and any man could crawl through its eye sockets. Looking past the unholed skeletal remains, you find plenty more fanning out into a valley. The heaviest of the bones stay where their owner's breath had last ushered them, while the smallest of the sort have long since rolled to the valley ditch, and settled there in a wash of white, wimpled with whatever flesh and fur remains. You've no reason to believe that none other than the unholds themselves plotted their demise here. Violence is not in their shapes. They are sitting up or laying down in peaceful eternities. And indeed, Seymore points out a great giant which seems to have recently laid itself to rest. It is nestled into an earthen nook with its hands wrapped over its knees, and its head tilted on a shoulder. It watched the sunset, and will do so for many years to come. Not that you care. You order the men to fan out and collect what they can. Some of these bones or pelts or what else they brought could be of great use to the company. Doesn't feel quite right, but it's certainly not wrong. Goodness knows we could use those bones and that hide. One step closer to a potential Kraken fight. It is a bit of a shame they don't really have undead outside of basic humans. I mean, I wouldn't really count the Noxera, even though they do, I think, technically fall under the undead umbrella. I'm sure there's a narrative reason for it. The undead do generally seem to be closely tied to the whole ancient empire plotline. But, you know, it would be an interesting change of pace if we were to encounter, say, undead unhold. Not, I suppose, that I'm really keen to fight more things that are immune to maiming injuries. Speaking of which, goblins. Backs bowed neath heavy bones. The raiders soon find reprieve as, passing over a low rise, their eyes fall upon a goblin camp. Not, of course, that they're particularly eager to be pincushioned by poisoned projectiles, but the hall's been a mite bit light thus far, and thus spurred by the promise of potential treasure. The raiders descend on yet more foes. Though I suppose we could have waited till after dark. That would have made this slightly easier. Then again, though, we are actually kind of light on food at this point. Maybe best not to have squandered those hours. Especially since these guys can't seem to actually land a hit. Emboldened by lack of actual impacts, the raiders rush through the rain of arrows. Weapons at the ready, waiting to see if perhaps the skirmishers will meet them halfway. The sudden rise of barbed rambles being a decisive no. The rest of the raiders breaking into a full-on sprint, lest they suffer a similar fate. Seymore leading the charge. Random not far behind. And one by one, the remaining raiders likewise patter forward, albeit in somewhat slightly scattered fashion. Loath to lurk too close to one another, knowing there's a shaman in the mix. Meanwhile, the raiders, still tangling with topiary, do their sheer best to find their way free. Another errant scattering of arrows. None finding their mark. And finally, a pattering of other projectiles. The anatomists ensnared with nets, crude bolas bouncing off their forms. But the bulk of the raiders left unhampered. Bowman returns fire. A skirmisher yelping at his hands-off approach. Another light shower clouds the raiders' advance. A few near misses, but armor takes the brunt. Tommy tears through 2 on south. And Seymore swings in. The first of the skirmishers finally felled, split asunder by his blade. Two others falling neath random flail. The wild man wandering where they had once been. Giannis moves in on north, trimming a limb. Mal circling in on south. The goblin line instantly overrun. Even as the shaman still vainly attempts to slow the rest. Bows are stowed, wickedly curved daggers coming out. Clashing and lashing across the raiders' forms. Arrow angles shots overhead. Dastards ducking desperately. One disemboweled despite. Oh, that's dirty pool. Come on, man. Seymore sent reeling as a swarm of stinging insects cloud his sight. Giannis whittling them down on north. Mal and Verlin stalled on south. Diego ducks in, pulling the insect swarm swordsman away. Enough of that, Random growls, cracking his flail across the shaman's fingers. The caster's howl cut short as he's impaled a split second later, him and the bowman beside. But not our bowman. Different bowman. You wouldn't know him, he goes to a different school. And Seymore staggers back, swatting and swearing as he tries to clear the air. But sadly, by the time he does, the fight will almost certainly be over. As evidenced by a goblin expiring, the greenskin streaked red by the ready flow of blood. Another wheezes like a punctured bagpipe, lung collapsing in real time. Two more annihilated, courtesy of Alois. Verlin violently ending yet one more. And the final two turn tail. Intent on running, though one is somewhat hampered, given his breathless head start. Though he is still the last one standing, for what that's worth. Alright, yeah, another easy win. I mean, not apt to pull much in the way of loot, but we'll take the... Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I guess that just goes to show that the level of challenge does not directly correlate to the level of loot. Well, would you look at that, Val drawled. nodding towards a peculiar helmet recovered from the goblin camp. That there belonged to a lindworm hunter. Fine piece of work. Immune to acid, but maybe not so much against a goblin's bow. A crying shame. Would have liked to meet him. Not a lot of beast slayers running around these days. We'll put it to good use. Man, that's such a fantastic find. Really nice looking helmet, too. I am thinking probably Epic Seymore, since he's already got the greenish-hued sellsword armor. That would go pretty nicely with it. Though it's a bit redundant because he's also got the Lindworm mantle on right now. I wouldn't have obviously given that to him if I'd realized we were going to find something like this right after. But, you know, we'll make the sacrifice for fashion. Also pulled another painted shield. Not that we really need one right now, but we'll certainly take it. And, with that, we're pretty much full up. Yeah, we're scrounging for space here, so you know what? We might have to cut this expedition short. Start heading back. Just as well, I suppose. I think before we came in here, we saw that we were already running a bit low on rations. I really should clear more space. It's just tough to decide what's worth keeping just in case, you know? Also, I just realized we're pushing the 40-minute mark already, so a bit of a shorter episode, but I do feel like this might be a good place to call it. I'm going to have to do some finagling here anyway. Shuffle a few things around, decide who gets some of this new gear. Yeah, in retrospect, this was a pretty jam-packed episode. Had a couple of interesting fights, got some fantastic loot, a unique encounter we'd never seen before. Not bad. Surprised we didn't get any level ups, but I guess those are going to come further and farther between, at least until someone finally kicks it. A very real possibility, as we saw with those chosen. That's it. We'll hit the pause button for now. I will do the usual off-screen bookkeeping, and we will pick up here next time as we get back on course towards Eisengrab. And with our current ambition, I did get a bit sidetracked there, I suppose. Though, honestly, well worth it. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Bowman, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.